Hi, welcome back to Trebons. So here we are with Grace's Tom Jones litter. They're 4.5 weeks today, and they're doing well, as you can see. Hello, hello, hello. And what's interesting, or what I find extremely interesting, is in the past when we've had litters, all the litters have basically followed the same steps in development. And even though this litter is premature, I was expecting the development to be the same all the way through. Hello, people. And by that I mean what normally happens is between 10 and 12 days the ears start popping open. A few days later the eyes start popping open. And then around about 3 weeks it's an introduction to solids. And by 3.5 weeks we're onto our solids properly, still being fed by the mother, but that's generally the way things normally go. These guys are very, very good in the hand at the moment, which is unsurprising. But from the day one, when they were born, they didn't have any instinct, and normally when you have a newborn litter, if you put your hand down into a litter of puppies and the mother's next to it, the puppies will instinctively move away from your hand. It doesn't feel right, doesn't smell right, and they will find their mother. These guys never had any instinct. They didn't have any instinct for sucking, no instinct whatsoever. So our first thing was to feed them and everything else, and for 5 days we were struggling with that. And then suddenly they started getting onto the tip, and within 5 days from getting onto the tip, they not only doubled their weight, they just about trebled it, as you saw in the previous videos. The last video, what we saw was the eyes were starting to come open, and that was reasonably bang on schedule at 16 days. But the ears hadn't. And in all my previous litters we've had, it's always been the ears come first and everything else. Now they're 4.5 weeks now, and it was last week at 3.5 weeks that ears actually started developing and coming up, which is a whole 12, nearly 2 weeks later than normal. Now, my first instinct with the puppies was that it was all about getting on the calories, not moving, etc. And you know, when you look at nature and everything else, the reason the ears come open and coincides with when the nails need cutting, and there's going to be their first nail cutting, they're just ready now to be cut. Is to do a competition. It's not just about sound, it's also about movement, and it's about movement to get to the mother's tip and everything else. And we know from previous litters that we've done and worked with, when it comes to handling, we can stimulate that growth a lot earlier, introduce that competition a lot earlier. These guys are not exactly very competitive at the moment. Very good in the hand. Aye, aye. Aye, aye, he says. Very good in the hand, very easy to handle. But they're not exactly the most competitive puppies in the world we've ever had. And I think that's to do with the way nature's come in here and delayed the process for the ears and the nail growth. Because the nails are used to not only crawl along the ground, but to push their litter mates away to get to the mother's tip. And generally, with a small litter, there's no need for that competition. But I would have expected it to be, I was really expecting it to be the same development in the puppy as we see normally. So that's very different. It's been a tremendous hassle and job to get them onto solids. They've not really been interested in the solids, they've been picking at it. It's only now that we're getting into the solids. And it's like we've got two different time frames. Are we treating them as a 3.5-week-old litter? They're far more developed than that. Or do we treat them as a 4.5-week-old litter? They're not as developed in that. And normally between 3.5 and 4 weeks is where you actually see the puppy for what it is. And that's what we're working with normally afterwards, is to find those thresholds in the puppy. We're not there yet in our development, that's for sure. Hello. So it's a very, very interesting litter. The way nature has delayed things by 2 weeks, I think, is absolutely amazing. I can understand why it's happened. But my feeling is that all these as the puppies come online now, they're all coming online, they're going to all happen at once. Normally we've got a plan and we know this is happening, so then we're working with this, that and the other. We develop introduction to sound, curiosity, boom, 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 and this is all going to happen at once, I feel. So we have to be careful, I feel, in the way we're handling the puppies. As I say, they're pretty good in the hand, nice and solid, whoa, 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 and settle down pretty quick. So I don't think they're going to be touch sensitive, because that's always a risk. We don't want touch sensitive puppies, but we have to find their thresholds, and at the moment we still haven't seen the puppy for what it is. It's only the last day or so that they've actually got into their food. That's been a huge process, and oh yeah, we're definitely getting into that now. They've figured out what food is and they like that. Yeah. And this is normally, the first time I introduce it to a puppy, it's normally like this. This has taken 3 or 4 days to get this. It's got, you've got no idea. Yes, there we go. Use your nose. And we're going to start using the food as to introduce competition. So it might seem like teasing, but it's important that puppies are a little bit competitive, because that's what motivates the dogs. That competition is that, you know. So we need puppies to be a little bit more competitive than they are at the moment. And admittedly, with small litters, it's not necessarily, puppies aren't as competitive as they are in bigger litters. But at 4.5 weeks, my feeling is they should be a little bit more competitive than they are now. And that's what we're going to try and stimulate. And again, it's down to food. Now that we've got the food going, it's a week later than we would normally be using it. And just stick some up here, get the smell going and everything else. And you see, very small helpings at this age. Are we going to chase the food? What about you? We've got noses are going. Yeah. Okay. You have to wait for it. It's over there. It's over there, Lou. It's over there. So, as I say, when we look at the males, I don't know if we can zoom in, but we've got very, very small nails still. They're only just ready now to be cut, actually. And this is at 4.5. And we're doing this first cutting normally around about 10 days, 11 days. And we're talking weeks later instead. So you can see the development is very, very different. We've just got to, we like our food now, that's good. And that's been a struggle, as I say, getting them onto the solids. Oh, there we go. And we're going to have to, get in there, figure that out. And that's been a solid. They've been pretty much indifferent to the food, really. And we have no idea what food is. So, but all in all, it's going very well. As I say, the development's been very, very different in the way, and I didn't know that it would change, so I was expecting exactly the same sort of development, maybe a bit later than normal, but ears followed by eyes a few days later, then followed by putting them onto the solids. But we seem to be, you know, like there's a whole 2 weeks difference in development. In some ways, they're further ahead. In some things than a 4.5-week-old litter. In other ways they are bang on 4.5 weeks, and in other ways they're back down to 3.5 weeks. So it's a little bit confusing, and knowing what to do with them and how to handle them. Everything has been about handling. And trying to, say we're not that interested. There we go. It's just trying to get them in there, and now we've got the food going, and hopefully we get back onto a more even keel with the puppies, but their whole development, their brains and everything else are that much more advanced than we would normally do these exercises. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But the main thing is we've got the handling is pretty good, as I say, and that's been a, whoa, we settled down pretty quick. Oh, so you're getting there. What about you? Yeah, whoa, hello. Bump. But it's important that we get a bit of competitiveness in there, otherwise we might end up with couch potatoes. We need to find their thresholds. That's what it's about. We need to find out what it takes to excite the dog, what it takes to scare the dog, and to either increase the thresholds or lower those thresholds, whichever it may be. And we're normally a lot further ahead with that at this age. 4.5 weeks, as I say, we still haven't even seen their true nature yet. And this is bang on the time where you see it and you understand what your puppy is and what you're working with. We still haven't seen that come out yet, so a little bit behind on that, but it's very, very interesting. And I think it's absolutely fascinating. Normally, with the handing, we know we can speed the process up of development, but I've never actually seen it change or being slowed down so much, that development. And of course, you know, nature's come in, newborn puppies. My first instinct was we don't want the puppies moving around, keep them warm, keep them asleep, burn off a few calories, just put calories on. And I think nature's done exactly the same. Keep the ears shut, no claws coming out, no competition, just feeding and putting on that weight, which is what they've done. And now it's time to get to what we would say is a normal type of puppy, but still far short of what we would expect at 4.5 weeks. In a lot of ways, as I say, they are acting like a 3.5-week-old litter. A little bit more curious than that, than a normal one. But overall, very, very happy with their progress now. We're moving well. And thank God we're onto the solids, because now I can sort of take over rather than the mother. And Grace is doing very, very well, but she's not here, otherwise she'd be eating all this. Yeah, oh, I really like that. Bit of an overload going on there. What about you? What about you? What about you? There we go. What about you? Oh, that's good stuff. I'll take my hand. They've got teeth, they've got a lot of teeth. And it surprises me it's taken so long to get them onto the solids. I mean, I've been trying for the last week basically to try and get them on. It's only the last couple of days. And their teeth are solid, they're all there. And they've only just started really playing with each other as well, which is also, this whole development is very, very different and very interesting to watch. So that is our progress with the litter at 4.5 weeks. I hope you had a good Christmas, and we'll see them again in the new year.